Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Scott Wurtzbacher, and today's show is all about unexpected things that can happen and the amazing people that you meet when you answer the call to adventure and you show up ready to go. Because that's exactly what happened to me on a recent trip to Tanzania, Africa, to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So my climbing partners and I have already recapped that experience on a previous episode of this podcast. But there's something that I didn't share about a synchronicity that happened and somebody that I met on that trip. And that person is Macon Dunnagan, and he is our guest today. Macon is the honorary Tanzanian Ambassador of Tourism to the United States. He is a true adventurer. And last month, he completed his 46th summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. He spent the last 22 years of his life advocating for Mount Kilimanjaro and Tanzanian tourism. He is a published author of a book called Sons of Kilimanjaro. And while we met thousands of miles away in Tanzania, Africa, it turns out that Macon and I live 3 miles apart in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is my honor and privilege to have him with us today. Macon, welcome to the campfire.
Scott, thank you very much. What a great honor it was really for meeting you also.
Yeah. And so Macon, I can't wait to hear just so much about your story and your adventures and everything Tanzania and Mount Kilimanjaro. But I have to set some context for the listeners because really I'm flying to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for the very first time. And, you know, I've never been, I've been to a few European countries, but Africa was a big deal for me. And, you know, had a lot of anxiety and, you know, some concerns about heading over there and, you know, just all kinds of stuff going on. And I show up at the airport, the American Airlines counter, and the airport wasn't really that busy that day. And the really, really nice gate agent behind the counter said to me, she could see I had all this gear, and she said, "Oh, well, where are you going?" And I said, "Mount Kilimanjaro." And we kind of had this conversation going, and she got so excited, and she said, "Oh, there's a man that lives here in Charlotte and he has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro like 40 something times. And this man is just amazing. And oh, what is his name? I can't remember what his name was." And she had 3 or 4 different people that were just standing around, and she asked everyone, "Hey, do you remember what his name was?" And she got so excited about it and pulled her phone out and started going through Facebook because she wanted to tell me about this person. And she found you and she found your post and she said, "Here he is right here, Macon Dunnagan." And I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much." And, you know, Macon, at that point, I didn't know who you were and I didn't know of you. And, you know, really, I just wanted to get on the airplane. So this experience was kind of like, okay, what's happening here? Well, lo and behold, 48 hours later, I arrive at the Springlands Hotel in Tanzania, and my friend Carl and I show up at the pool there. And across on the other side is this gentleman laying and getting some sun. And my friend Carl says, "Hey, hello, where are you from?" And it's you. And you say, "Charlotte, North Carolina." And I say, "Get out of here." And so we said, "What are you doing here?" "Well, I just climbed Kilimanjaro for the 46th time." And my face just dropped like, "What is your name?" And of course you said Macon Dunnagan. And the rest is just, it's history from there. Of course,
it is.
Then we got into some conversation about mutual friends that we have that are also actually a friend of this podcast, Mr. Bill Barty, and we have him in common. So just Absolutely. Some incredible synchronicity, Macon, and it's just such an honor to be able to talk to you today.
Well, fantastic. It's an honor to talk to you also.
Oh man. Can we just jump right in and just go can we go back to that first time that you ever climbed Kilimanjaro? Like what brought you there that first time?
Well, my late wife and I had won 2 tickets on South African Airways on an airline Christmas drawing. And but the deal was that I had to take this vacation in a month.
Wow.
And so we got together and I said, "You know what? I'm getting ready to turn 40 years old. While we're there, I'm just going to go on," because it said that in the reading the thing about the ticket that you could have an add-on out of Cape Town. And I said, well, I think since I'm turning 40, I'm going to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And she just went, are you insane? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro while I'm over there. Might as well do it. And I got in touch with Zara Tours. I ended up doing a money transfer. It took 3 days to do a money transfer to Tanzania at the time.
Wow.
And went over there and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and just did it. First time in a sleeping bag, first time in a tent, first time hiking, first time doing anything. Was my first time was on Kilimanjaro.
What called you to that? Like, so obviously you won the vacation, but what was it about Kilimanjaro? Like, why did you, and you obviously surprised your wife. Like, what was the call?
The call was, I always had just a desire to go to Africa. Not sure what it was. I'd never been there before, and just decided that this was the time, the one and only time at that time that I would climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I said, yeah, you know what, let's do it. And she goes, yeah, you know what, we'd only been married for a year at the time, not even, yeah, just about a year when we went over there to climb Kilimanjaro. When I went over to climb Kilimanjaro, she had just gotten a job with Northwestern Mutual here in Charlotte and had to come straight back home from our vacation in Cape Town. But I went on up to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and did it.
Wow. So had you climbed any other mountains before that experience?
Crowders.
Crowder's Mountain. Yeah, yeah, very familiar. Um,
Oh yes.
Probably about the best training mountain that we have here in Charlotte. That's about 1,500 feet compared to Kilimanjaro's 20,000. So, yeah, that's awesome. So, what was life like for you? What did life look like before you climbed Kilimanjaro? Your day job.
I was a baggage handler for American Airlines. No, for U.S. Air at
Hmm.
the time.
Yep.
It hadn't gone to American Airlines yet. I was just a baggage handler, just newly married to a Canadian who I'd met in Fiji 2 years before, and just out there slinging luggage, and had never written a book, had never done anything, had never really traveled that much. Had traveled some, but not to Africa. And so I was just a regular Joe baggage handler for American Airlines.
Well, I love to hear that because at the beginning of this podcast, in our intro, you heard that this whole podcast is about ordinary people telling their stories of extraordinary adventure. And that trip, it sets you off on a whole, another 22 years of adventure. And that's the story that I really want to get into. But what happened to you on that first climb of Mount Kilimanjaro that sort of set you off on this path that followed?
Well, I was pretty disciplined, and what I did was I didn't know anything about climbing Kilimanjaro, but what I did know was if I listened to the people around me who did know something about it, then I would probably do pretty well. And so that's what I did. I just put my faith into Joseph Mela and the three other fellows who had big mountain climbing experience, and I just did what they said. And again, walking slowly, drinking lots of water. This is before the Diamox days. This is when you just went up there and climbed Kilimanjaro with water and aspirin. And it was just, I just listened to the people who knew what was going on Kilimanjaro. And because of that, I summited the first time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was one of the big takeaways I think we had from our climb too, was to trust our guides. And I think that that whole experience of trusting the guides is certainly what helped us get up there too. But we also had the benefit of getting to talk to Macon Dunnagan poolside to get your take on it before we went up the mountain. And I certainly had your voice in my head and some of the things that you shared with me at the pool that helped me get up there. So it's kind of cool that, that transition that you make from being a first timer to then educating other people and helping other people. So,
Right.
so you got to the summit that very first time. Like, can you share, do you remember the feelings that you had when you got to the summit the first time?
I could not believe it. I really couldn't. I mean, I was there, but again, there was a lot of ice around me at the time. This was 1999, and there was a lot of ice around, and the ice cap around the Haru Peak, and I just taking it all in. And again, not really knowing what I was doing. I went up there and I listened to the guides and did what I was supposed to do, and went to Gelman's and then over to Stella Point. From Stella Point, went on up to Uhuru Peak. And but yeah, just coming back from the whole thing was a blur now. And coming back down to Kibo, and then yeah, it was kind of a blur now. But I know I did it, and somewhere around here, there's a picture of me on top of Kilimanjaro, but
Yeah.
I don't know where it is.
Well, one of the things that you said to me poolside was, that once you get the first one out of the way, then you can enjoy it the next time because all the pressure is gone. I remember you saying that to me is like, there's pressure that first time. And then, all the subsequent climbs I think that you've had the ability to really kind of relax and enjoy it. But I guess what I'm wondering is, so when you came down the mountain that first time, did you know right away you were coming back?
No, did not. The only time I knew, I had an idea that I was coming back, because I was newly married at the time,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I had a wife and had never been married before at 40 years of age. And so I came down, and Michelle greeted me at the airport. She goes, "You look great. I mean, you really look fantastic." And she goes, "If you want to climb Kilimanjaro, you can again." And I said, "Well, I might just do that." And then the opportunity came up about about 6 months later for me to go back with a friend of mine from work and climb Kilimanjaro, and I did it and did the Marangu route again. Didn't know anything different, just climbed the Marangu route, and did it again over 5 days.
Yeah. So for most people, I mean, a climb like this, it's a bucket list item. You do it once and that, then you move on. But like what triggered you going back a second time?
Well, just the ability to be there and see something different, because I went on a safari the second time.
Okay.
Just didn't do Kilimanjaro, and went on safari, and was able to experience that, and was able to tell more people back in Charlotte what the safari situation was about on top of Kilimanjaro. And then got my wife, Michelle, at the time, to come over with me again, just to go on safari, and not to climb Kili, but just to go over there and see what I was doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the first trip, you didn't do the safari the first time. Was that sort of inspiration for you? And you kind of saw some things that you wanted to go back and check out a second time?
Right, right, right. Again, the great thing about Tanzania is you can always come back and do it again, and
Yeah.
see something different. Every one of my 46 Kilimanjaro climbs, never have they been the same. They've always been completely different. And just like safaris, the same thing is that when you go in safari, it's never the same. It's always different. Even after 16 safaris now that I've been on.
Yeah. It's amazing. So now we've kind of gotten to that second climb. And
Right.
so, 44 more climbs have followed. Like, how does that even happen?
I guess it's just kind of the desire to be back over there and to be on Kilimanjaro, and to be just, that's what I was using my vacation time from US Air, was to go over and climb Kilimanjaro. And I just, that was my thing. I just started enjoying being on the mountain and going over to Africa, and that became it. Some guys play golf, other
Yeah.
guys, play tennis, whatever. I climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Macon, what there's gotta be something that about that mountain that pulls you over there. Like, what is that thing inside of you that pulls you to that mountain? What is it that calls like, what are like, kind of what are the unique experiences that you have over there that keeps you coming back?
Well, it's kind of like football in a lot of ways. When I played it in high school, it's like you got to get through the pain and there is pain on Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's one of those things where you have to suck it up and just go for it. And you know that there's one part that's going to be hard, but it's so rewarding. Getting to Gelman's, getting to Stella, getting to Huru Peak is just the most rewarding thing, because you work so hard of it. I've always said that climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is the hardest mental, physical challenge you will ever voluntarily ever do in your life.
Yes.
And people come up and go, "Well, wait, what about a marathon?" I said, "Well, think about a marathon. If you have a problem, you can just walk off
Yep.
and you're fine. Thing about Kilimanjaro is you got to turn around at Uhuru Peak and have enough in your tank to come back
That's
down the mountain.
that's right.
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, it absolutely. And, having it so fresh in my mind now, I mean, the mental and physical challenge, I've done it once. And so, will I go back? I think I would love the opportunity to at some point. I think that would be great. And I guess I wonder what the mental challenge is like the second time, the third time. Like mentally, does it get easier, or does it continue to be difficult and challenging every time you do it?
It's always difficult. It's always challenging. But now that I know the Rongai route so well, I've done all 7 routes up Kilimanjaro, and I've just kind of fallen in love with the Rongai route. Just the beauty of the route, and it's just I know the route. I know what's going to happen. I know how many hours from one camp to the next camp. I know what time we have to leave Kibo to get to Gelman's, and what time we need to leave Gelman's to get to Stella, and Stella to get to Haru Peak. I've kind of got it laid out, but I just know that there's going to be a really tough time between Kibo and Gelman's, and it's rewarding to get there and seeing the sun coming up behind Mount Onesie, and
Yeah.
to just be there and to see that, and then the sun once you get up there gives you a little bit of warmth to say, okay, yeah, I'm here. Let's go on over. Let's go. Take off. Let's go into Stella and let's go into Haru Peak. And it's that sun coming up. It gives you that just that I walked through the night to experience this, and now the sun's up and it's time to go. I can see Uhuru Peak from Gelman's, and I want to get there.
It really is. I remember turning around and looking at the horizon as we got close to Stella Point, and it just, like, the day that we came up, the horizon looked like it was on fire, and it was
Yes.
just so, so beautiful. And one of the things that we've talked about with a lot of different guests on this podcast in particular is I'm a big fan of the word awe. And in the Google version of the dictionary, awe is defined as a feeling of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder. And I can tell you, I felt that immensely when I got up to the summit. And I'm just curious if you've had those kinds of awe experiences when you were up there.
Oh, Scott, you're so absolutely right, man. I can't tell you how many people I've walked out of Springlands Hotel for them to see Kilimanjaro for the very first time. And when they see it and their mouth just drops, it's the same experience I have every time I look at that mountain. It's so much more of respect for the mountain and awe, because I know that it can be a huge challenge with rain or snow or just an inner challenge, but just the respect and awe that I have for the mountain and other people have for it also.
Yeah, and that's some of the reward, right? It's
Oh
that
yeah.
respect. And it raises a good point though. Over 22 years and 46 different climbs, can you talk a little bit about some of the different conditions that you've climbed in?
Oh, can I ever? I mean, I've climbed in rain. I mean, here's one thing. I've done 100-degree temperature swing. We left Springlands Hotel and it was 100 degrees. And when I got to the top of Haru Peak, it was -10.
Yeah.
So over 100-degree temperature swing. I've climbed in snow, ice, sleet, rain, um, pouring rain. Um, one time the wind blew so hard it blew the cooking tent and the dining tent
Wow.
completely off the mountain. Just blew it completely away, and we had to come down all the way from Uhuru Peak and come all the way back to Springlands in one day. That's how bad it was, and everybody was covered with volcanic dust because the
Wow.
wind blew so
Yeah.
badly during the night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been so cold, and so sometimes it's been nice and warm. But most of the time that what I've really gotten to me is being able to look up and see the stars when I'm climbing Kilimanjaro. And if you climb in a new moon, then you don't see you see the stars, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Our summit was on full moon night, so it was kind of interesting because we didn't actually even, you're climbing in the dark, but we didn't even need our headlamps because
You
the
don't.
moon was so
You're
bright. It
right.
was a perfectly clear night. Really beautiful. So, what is it like for you? Like the very first time when you're going, it's your first time and you kind of don't know what to expect, flash forward to, the 40th climb. Obviously, I'm sure you're with other people and you're probably with other first timers. What is it like for somebody that's got the level of experience that you do on that mountain to accompany first timers up the mountain?
Well, I'm there to, I take a lot of the ambiguity out,
Yeah.
the stuff that's not true about climbing Kilimanjaro, but I leave the mystery in. I let them find out what it's like, on their own, because it's their own adventure, and I don't want to give all of that away to them. But I just make sure that they go slowly, and that they got the right equipment to have on the mountain, especially a really good sleeping bag, and they understand that they're going to need headlamps and hiking poles. And now, of course, understanding what Diamox is all about. It's just giving that information to them. But I leave a lot of it out for them to figure out. I don't tell them everything.
Yeah. Good. So for listeners that aren't sure, tell us what the Diamox is for.
Oh, Diamox is acetazolamide. It's a drug that's been around since the 50s. They used to use it for, or still do use it for, glaucoma. And what they found is these people who went out to Denver, Colorado and snow skied with this, they, for some reason, didn't get altitude sickness. And what it does is acidifies your blood. So it takes in more oxygen. And kind of a disclaimer, I am not a doctor,
Right.
but I have been taking Diamox now for almost, my word, 20 years now.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a common thing
It's
there.
the, it's the only recreational drug that I take.
I love it. There you go. So, again, so 20 years of climbing. One thing you had made a comment about being up at Uhuru Peak that first time and being surrounded by ice caps. What environmentally, what changes have you noticed on the mountain over 22 years?
Oh, I've definitely seen a reduction in the ice caps over the years, but I've been up there, when the ice was so thick all the way up to Uhuru Peak. I mean, all the way up that you had to wear yak tracks to get on the ice. Yeah, I mean, there was like 3 feet of ice below
Yeah.
us, and but then again, I've been up there when there's been no ice whatsoever and no snow. It just depends. It's Kilimanjaro is a fickle thing. It's so huge that it creates its own weather system. So you're never really sure what kind of, even though you're climbing in the dry season, which I do in February and July, it can rain and it can snow. It's all up to Kilimanjaro and what it wants to do.
Yeah. So have you noticed any sort of consistent weather pattern changes over the 22 years, or has it been kind of erratic?
It's kind of erratic. Usually back in the day, we would climb in January and February and be pretty sure that it wouldn't rain on us at all. But for a while there, the wind would blow so hard off of Kilimanjaro that there would actually be, it'd whip up ice cloud over Kilimanjaro, and it was just
Wow.
crazy. You could see it from Springlands Hotel, and knowing that the wind was really howling up there at the top.
Yeah. So what are like some of the changes that you've seen over 22 years in terms of like the climb itself, the technology, how have the routes
Oh, wow.
changed?
The technology. Well, the routes. I'd started out with Marangu, and then went to Machami, then did Shirel and Mosho, then came back and did Umwe, and finally they said, "Hey, you need to go in the Rongai route," which I did. But they've changed those routes around a little bit. The Rongai route's been changed, so you're not going through the snow-capped village there. You're going up further, and it's actually shortened the route by about 4 hours. But yeah, the other routes, the huts have changed on the Marangu route. The technology's changed. Everybody used to use sat phones when I was there. Of course, I
Mhm.
couldn't afford a sat phone, but other people had sat phones. But now you can use your cell phone and call back. Internet's changed a lot, but the technology, from the number one thing that stopped people from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro back in the early 2000s was blisters from your boot. Believe it or not,
Wow.
that
Yeah.
was the number one thing that got people not to summit Kilimanjaro, because their feet were so wrecked by the boots. But now, I mean, as you know, I completely fell in love with the Solomon Quest 4s that I used on this one. Just amazing. I can't imagine how many more, how my toes would have been if I'd started out with those Solomons back 20 years ago. But before that, it was just leather boots that we took up Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, good pair of boots is important. Do you use trekking poles?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Trekking poles are absolutely a necessity for me. I just know that how much they take pressure off my knees and my hips, and I've been using them forever. And I just, especially coming down, going up, well, yes, but coming down, especially that scree field off of even if it's off of Stella or Gelman's, it's still coming down that you're going to need those hiking poles to get down the scree.
Yeah. And Macon, for you, you were 40 when you started this journey. It's been 22 years. How has this climb changed for you as you've gotten older?
Well, I've gone through two rotator cuff surgeries and a hip replacement. The climb in December that we did was kind of a shakedown for me personally, just to see how I would react. I had 115 people with me climbing.
Wow.
Was leading a group of Tanzanians who would celebrate the 60th anniversary of Tanzanian independence. And Edwin and I said, "Hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to see how that hip works on climbing Kilimanjaro." And and of course, the two shoulder rotator cuff surgeries, and believe it or not, did not have 1 ounce of problem climbing or coming down. And then again, climbed again in February, and again had no problems at all. It's just that I understand the importance of going slowly and drinking water and acclimating, and I try to pass that point on to my other climbers.
Yeah. And so that's those fundamentals, like you said, going slowly, staying hydrated, staying well fed, and frankly, probably the motion is good for the joints, right? The
Oh
movement.
yes, oh absolutely. I exercise every afternoon.
Yeah.
I work out every afternoon just to keep the joints going. I don't want
Yeah.
to. Again, I'm going back to climb Kili again in June and then again in July this year. So I got to keep everything greased up.
Yeah, so you're approaching 50. Is that something that you're excited about? 50 climbs. Is that something that you're planning? Is there
Not really, not yet. I got to get through 40, 47, and 48. 49 will be in February of 2023. So yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, 49, and then so 50 would be my climb and my first climb in summer 2023.
Yeah.
So it'll be. I think I have a couple of friends who want to be with me when I do 50.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah. So this whole 22-year journey and it's a passion for you. This is something that you just really love. And so 22 years of climbing Kilimanjaro, a whole lot of things have happened to you. You are now the ambassador to Tanzania for the United States for tourism. Like, how does that happen?
When I set the record climbing Kili, I set it does, gosh, how many years ago? It's 12 years ago now. Hard to imagine. I climbed Kili 4 times in 28 days,
Wow.
and everybody asked, well, how hard was that to climb Kilimanjaro 4 times in 28 days? And I said, I lost 33 pounds in 28 days. That's how hard it was. And once they saw that I could talk to people in crowds and relay the information about Tanzania, they asked me to do this to be the honorary Tanzanian Tourism Ambassador to the United States. And I gratefully and freely do this for the people of Tanzania.
So what does that look like for you when the ambassador for tourism for Tanzania? What does that look? What does that look like day to day? What does that involve?
Just answering questions from people all over the country. I just, I check my emails from Tanzania at 4:30 in the morning, and then from there, uh, just uh, just talk to people from every walk of life in North America and Canada about climbing Kilimanjaro. Usually, it's groups who want to climb Kilimanjaro for fundraising, and I'm not usually a part of that. I just kind of guide them through the whole situation. I can't be with every group climbing Kilimanjaro, but I can guide them in the right direction and show them how to do a fundraiser. But again, I do that freely. I do it on my own time. It's a hobby that's become a passion, and I just want to make sure that people get um, the best experience possible out of climbing Kilimanjaro, and then going on safari in Zanzibar. You can't just talk about Kilimanjaro because you have to bring on Tanzania and Zanzibar, and you have to uh, let people know that they're two together. It's not Tanganyika and Zanzibar anymore. It's Tanzania.
Yeah. So did the tourism industry there really, I think you said they started paying attention to you when you did that 4 climbs in 28 days. Is that kind of when it all triggered and all started
That's what
happening for
happened.
you?
Yes.
Yeah. It's really wild. Are you having fun doing it? It seems like you're traveling all over the place.
Yes, I do. I travel, but I do it for fun.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that I like to do, and just enjoy freely giving my advice and answering questions about from gear to diamox to routes to everything. But again, it's just a passion that I have, and I just want to put people on the right path, or the right trail. To get them up Kilimanjaro and go on safari. Also, I plan honeymoons for people. Also, I've had 4, 5, 6 now couples that I've helped out with getting them their honeymoon. They want adventure honeymoons, and so I've been able to steer them in the right direction for that. Also, haven't done a wedding yet, but
Oh, that
that'll
needs to
come.
happen. A wedding on Uhuru Peak. That needs to happen.
Oh well, I've seen it once. I've seen a marriage at Uhuru Peak once in my life, and that was 18, 17 years ago. But I actually saw the priest up there with the two, and it was pretty amazing.
How cool. Well, listen, it's a huge inspiration what you're doing. And this is the hero's journey. We go and we do this thing and it becomes a passion. And then we come back and we share our story with others. And this is exactly what you're doing. Like you're still living it, but it's amazing that you're able to share your story with other people and inspire and encourage people to do the same. And that's, a lot of what we're trying to do here with this podcast is just to encourage people to get outside. And I love the way that you're doing it in terms of encouraging people to get to Africa, which actually is another really good point. Like, what is the travel like right now for people that are thinking about maybe going to Tanzania and maybe wondering, like, should I, shouldn't I? Is now a good time?
Oh, I think we both know you should go. Now, don't forget. Now, the rainy season is getting ready to come up in Tanzania, so it's a little iffy. It's a low season coming up here, but I think for anybody who wants to get out and travel and go, just go. I mean, because it's been pent up for so long, and the what we found at Springlands, as you well know, and is that people who get there really want to be there. I mean, they've been planning this for years, and they were put off last year, and so they're going. They've got a real desire to climb Kilimanjaro, a real desire to go to Zanzibar, and a real desire to go to the Serengeti and see all the wonders of Lake Manyara and Tarangire and the Ngorongoro crater.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, make the plans, get on the plane and go. I completely
Go,
agree. Macon,
go.
in 2002, you wrote a book called The Sons of Kilimanjaro. And for those that are just listening, I'm holding it up here on the screen right now. But this was kind of fun. I was in our mutual friend's store, Mr. Bill Barty's Jesse Brown store, and he had one copy left. And I said, give me that book. And so I've got it here. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I started flipping through it and I saw that you wrote the book after your second climb. So I'm curious, now you're 46 climbs in, would the book change at all now that you've got a substantial number of more climbs?
Well, the thing about the book that you got to remember, I wrote that book in 2002,
Right.
and looked at my first wife Michelle, and I said, "Hey, listen, I think I'm going to write a book. There are no books about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro." And she goes, "Well, you need to write a book." And I said, "Well, let me look at it." So 2 days later, 3 days later, remember the Dell computer box
Yeah.
uh, arrived in our at our doorstep, and she goes, "There's your computer," because there are no laptops at the time. So there's your computer. Write your book, and I did. And but again, the whole book came kind of well. I know I'm not going to ruin it for everybody. I'll let them read the book,
Okay.
but yeah, it became a foretelling part of my life after I wrote the book.
Well, I'm excited. I read the back cover says it's about 4 guys that go climb Kilimanjaro together, and that's exactly what I just did. So I'm looking forward to reading it. And so I'm super excited. How can people get a hold of a copy of this book for themselves?
Sons of Kilimanjaro, Amazon.com, SONS.
Beautiful. Love it. So wrapping up here, Macon, I really appreciate everything. So for people that are, kind of getting that call to adventure but just maybe need a little bit of a nudge. What advice do you have for people right now regarding travel and just like overall, just kind of following your dreams and getting after that passion that they're maybe having some struggles pulling the trigger on?
You just have to go for it. I mean, you just kind of like say, this is everything going on in the world right now. You can't let fear or the unknown get after you with travel. You've got to just go and do it and experience it. You're not going to get anything from sitting around just watching the news all day long. You just got to absolutely get out and travel and go, and if you can, bring somebody along with you, and go and experience everything that this really wonderful world has to offer.
Yeah. And if I can just echo that, because I think a lot of this is, courage doesn't mean that you're not going to experience fear. Like the fear's still going to be there, but
Oh yeah,
it's choosing to go anyway, right? In the
right,
face of it. I mean, I definitely
right,
experienced some of that, the uncertainty, and there was some fear, and, but you just show up and like you said, you just trust your guides and you just follow the process.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, this was so good. Okay, so two questions that I always ask every guest, and then Macon, you have had such a tremendous journey here, and again, it started with just this, going and climbing Kilimanjaro once. You showed up, you had the courage, and then all of these other amazing things that you probably never expected unfolded afterwards. They're gonna make a movie about you someday, and I want to know who the Hollywood actor is going to be that's going to play you in that movie.
Well, he's my age and he's about my height, so I've got to go with Tom Cruise.
I love it. Tom Cruise. Okay. And what's your movie going to
Right.
be called? What's your movie going to be called?
Hopefully, Sons of Kilimanjaro.
There you go. I mean, it's already written. So here we go.
It's
Right.
written. It's ready to go. And once you read the book, you'll see the whole what all of it entails. There's a lot more to that book than just meets the eye. There's a lot of meat to it, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Oh, Macon, thank you. This has been just an unbelievable conversation. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope that Macon's story has encouraged you to listen to that voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or you need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. And we'd also appreciate it if you could help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire on your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thank you for listening. And Macon, thank you so much for being here today.
Scott, thank you.